Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about themes related to psychology, behavioral health, our emotions, as these sort of topics naturally manifest themselves in the gospel readings for each week. As always, this isn't a substitute for going to Mass, counseling, spiritual direction, those sort of things that you may be doing. But as we know, the spiritual life and our psychological well-being so often go hand in hand. And that's certainly the case today. Our gospel reading from the Gospel of Mark hits on this theme of the Transfiguration and change. And perhaps you're noticing this right now in the context of this video. You might be saying, wait a minute, where are you at? Usually when we see these videos, you're in your office. And that's not the case today. I'm out of town, and the place where I'm visiting, just down the street, there's this beautiful nature path. So I'm out walking and enjoying the beautiful afternoon in nature. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to talk about the gospel here in Gospel Minded and how it relates to our psychology, the psychology of change. So, like I said, in the gospel today, it's from the Gospel of St. Mark, the Transfiguration story, where Jesus takes Peter, James, and John and leads them to the high mountain alone in order to pray. Now, I think there's something important to be said about the fact that the Lord leads them to the mountaintop. We know scripturally that the top of the mountain represents a place that one meets the Lord and can have an encounter with God in a very special and significant way. And that's definitely the case today too. Relating this piece to our psychology, to our behavioral health, a lot of times on the journey throughout the course of life, it can kind of feel like we're on a pilgrimage, climbing up, going upward, going onward, trying to elevate and advance, get higher with our life, get to a different place. I love that theme of going to the top of the mountain or striving to climb upward and ascend and get closer to our own self-actualization, closer to the Almighty. And then when the Lord is at the top of the mountain, what happens? He transfigures, he changes such that he becomes dazzling white so that he couldn't be bleached any more pure. And I love that theme of the light. And in the gospel, it's such a beautiful technique that the author uses to connect it back to the Old Testament, the first order of God. Let there be light. And in this scene from the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is highlighting this divinity piece. He's connected to the Creator, God the Father, and he is the light of the world, manifesting in such a bright way that nothing could make it even more bright, even more light. And then furthermore, the apostles recognize him as the light. I love that. So let's talk about what this means related to psychology, related to behavioral health, related to our experience as emotional beings. Change. Jesus changes. He changes on the top of that mountain and manifests himself as a divine person. Then, of course, there's the booming voice of the Father, "Behold my beloved Son." I've heard different authors talk about this scene from the Gospels because the Transfiguration shows up in 3 of the 4 Gospels. And I've heard authors talk about this idea of natural transfiguration versus supernatural transfiguration. So to transfigure means to change. It comes from a Latin word, to change appearance, which comes from a Greek word, to change your form, morphe, like morphing, metamorphosis, changing into something completely different. So it can happen naturally, and then there's sort of a deliberate and intentional changing. So let's talk first about the natural change. This happens to us throughout the course of our life. we go through natural change all the time. We may not recognize it from one day to the next, but if you look at a child from 1 year to the next, a child 4 or 5 years old will look quite different than they did the year before. And then when you look at a child who's 10, 11, 12, they look very different than they did as a 4 or 5-year-old. Even look at these trees behind me, this beautiful nature scene. The trees today look quite different than they did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's a natural transfiguration, a natural changing, a progressing through life. It happens in nature. It happens to you and me. I've got my hat on today, but my hair is more gray than it was 10 years ago. I have a few more wrinkles and lines. I'm changing my appearance, and it's a natural thing. It's a natural transfiguration, and it happens to everybody and everything throughout the course of life, throughout the journey towards the mountaintop. But let's talk about this intentional or deliberate transfiguration. That's what we see today in this episode of Mark's Gospel, where the Lord is deliberately manifesting himself, changing in a way that he manifests his divinity. You and I can choose, can be very intentional to transfigure our lives, to make ourselves different, to try and make ourselves better. We can transfigure ourselves as part of that journey upwards to encounter the Lord, to become the very best version of ourselves, the best we can be. How do we do this? What does this look like? It can look a lot of different ways. We can transfigure ourselves when we make the determination that I want to do better. I want to avoid vice. I want to avoid the things that prevent me from really ascending, getting to that higher, better place in life. I think about a person who comes to the realization they need to stop drinking because it's been a problem for them, or avoid substance use because it hasn't helped them to become who they want to be in life. By changing that, they're transfiguring very intentionally. They are changing themselves. It's not easy. It's not always pleasant, but that is a way that they go about this process of change, intentional, deliberate, chosen, wrestled with. What about in simple ways that we can kind of transfigure ourselves every day? Here we are in the season of Lent. It's a time when we sacrifice. We can abstain from simple pleasures that the world offers us. We can take on new things, new challenges. I want to do more spiritual reading. I want to contribute more time in my day to zero in on my prayer life. Right, these are ways that we can go about transfiguring ourselves very deliberately. I'm trying to bring about a change in my life that, though difficult, will make my life better, will help me become more who I truly am supposed to be. Because in those times of sacrifice and that kind of change, we are ascending. We're going upwards in that journey. We're getting higher on the mountain, closer to the Lord, closer to who we hope to become as human beings. So we can have this natural transfiguration throughout the course of our life, yes, and we can have these deliberate, intentional, chosen changes, transfigurations, where we're trying to change who we are to be the very best that we can be, trying to imitate Jesus, who manifests himself today in a special way for the apostles that were with him. When we choose to deliberately transfigure ourselves for the better, we're trying to manifest the life of the Almighty, hopefully living within us. We can manifest the goodness of the Lord to those around us. And that brings me to this last point I want to bring up, which is Peter, James, and John were privileged to see something really fantastic on the top of that mountain, something that others didn't get to see, and they saw it in a way that others wouldn't necessarily see. But they were privileged in that way. You and I sometimes as well get those moments in life where they're sort of like a God wink, or perhaps in therapy or counseling, you gain some insight, you get some real clarity where you come to a profound recognition of yourself or others. You come to a realization of some truth or a understanding of a reality that perhaps you hadn't been aware of before. So what do we do with that once we've encountered the light? Once we've gotten those moments of clarity or truth, what do we do with that? The apostles didn't stay on the mountain forever, even though Peter said, well, let's make tents. Let's just stay here. Let's stick it out. This is a good place to be. It's good, Lord, that we are here. Yes, it is. It's good when you and I get those moments of clarity, where we have those insights, where we have those God wink moments. But we're not meant to stay motionless in that place, but we continue that journey, and we take that insight, we take what we've learned, and we use that as a way to grow, to become better ourselves, and to help others that we encounter every day become better as well. In doing so, we are transfiguring ourselves. We're changing ourselves to be even better versions of who we're supposed to be. We can change the world and the people around us. Really beautiful, deep things to ponder today on this second Sunday of Lent. So here we are. We're in a changed environment for Gospel-Minded, talking about change. I hope that you found this helpful today. I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you next time on Gospel-Minded. I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Take care.